On today's episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, burning questions for the Utah Hockey Club and for Vancouver. Is this Utah roster going to gel? And who's going to be in goal for the Canucks? Plus, early awards predictions.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Guten Tag and welcome into another episode of the Locked On NHL podcast, your daily NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we continue our Burning Questions series, taking a look at the Utah Hockey Club and Vancouver, and we'll give you a look at our predictions for awards in the Western Conference. Who do we think is going to be in the running? And what are some of the best value bets you can make, courtesy of our friends at FanDuel for those awards? My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, and joined, as always, on your Western Conference Tuesday edition of the show by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. JD, we have a lot of potential candidates from the Sharks for particular awards. But before we get there, we continue our burning questions, and we're starting with the team that features arguably the most new of any in the Western Conference. That is, of course, the Utah Hockey Club. I may have jumped the gun there. I still feel like that's going to be the winner for the official name is the Utah Yetis, but they are still officially the Utah Hockey Club, and built a defense on the fly throughout the NHL draft, and just have put together a really intriguing roster. But the big question here, is it all going to come together and lead to a postseason berth for Utah this year?
Yeah, I mean, this team is brand new in more ways than one, right? Built a brand new defense, had to pick up and leave, and new ownership, which I think is literally the best thing for them. Just to get out of the shadow that was the corruption and everything that was behind the Arizona. Come on, we know. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Pay your bills.
Not the Morellos.
I am shocked and appalled to hear this, but anyway, I think that new team, new identity. They're locking up, some of their young players. You saw Dylan Guenther get a massive deal this offseason. I assume Logan Cooley is not going to be far behind. This team is been building for a long time. They try to kind of build the defense on the fly here. And I think it's just all good vibes right now. And for this team, and I don't know if they're quite ready for a playoff run, but I think they can at least be that fun, frisky team. Maybe like Detroit was last year, where you're that team that's everyone's kind of rooting for, like the Sabres 2 years ago, right? Everyone's kind of rooting for. You're kind of like that team that you just want to see how far this thing can go. Like the Sam Darnold of the hockey season, where everyone's just behind them. Seth is fully engaged right now on this one.
Both feet, full in, both feet.
But like how everyone's behind this team, can you turn the page on a dark history of, I know it's not the same franchise, but turn the page on a dark history of this franchise, do something new, and be that, just be something fun and exciting this year. And I think they're going to be that team. I don't know if they can make the playoffs. I think we'll do it next week. We're going to do our playoff kind of predictions and stuff. And they're the team I'm struggling with the most on kind of like, do they make it? Do they not? And stuff. But you could very easily talk me into this team making the playoffs, though.
It is interesting because I'm kind of the same mind that I think it's maybe a year too early for Utah to put themselves in position to make some noise. But we got to remember last year, the formerly Coyotes were at least on the doorstep of
Yep.
a playoff spot for the first like half of the season. They started to really tail off at the end, but they were in position to potentially make a surprise playoff run, and then they just flat out ran out of gas. And I think that's a large reason as to why we saw so much done to overhaul the defense for this roster, because whether it be Karel Vejmelka or Connor Ingram, you look at some of the things that they did to try to keep this team in position. The goaltending has shown some promise. Now,
Yep.
you're not necessarily sure if it's long-term promise or kind of a flash in the pan, but I think Utah played this wisely in let's really bolster our defense and see if we can turn that goaltending from flash in the pan to consistently good. And then you allow yourself some growing room for a lot of young pieces, especially on offense. I
Yep.
mean, we talk about names like Josh Doan, Dylan Guenther,
Logan
Logan
Cooley.
Cooley,
Yeah.
plenty of young players on this offense. And so it might take it a little while to kind of get going offensively, but if that defense and goaltending can be good right off the drop, you buy yourself a little time to not have a ton of games where you lose like 2-1, 2-0, 3-1, those types of scores. And I low key, not even low key, I like the veteran
Euphoric.
leadership.
Sorry.
I very high key like the leadership on this Utah team. It's a lot of guys from different backgrounds, but you brought in Kevin Stenlund, who obviously was a huge piece for Florida in their Stanley Cup win. You've got guys on the back end. Obviously, Mikhail Sergachev was a big part of what Tampa Bay was able to do over the last few years. But you got vets. You got like an Ian Cole, who is he's been around a lot. Nick Bjugstad, been around a lot of hockey. These guys are going to be able to help guide those young pieces through some potential struggles. And Clayton Keller is a star caliber player to lead on the front end. And so Utah has a lot of really tantalizing and intriguing pieces to this mix. And so if those guys kind of hit the ground running, that's when you start playing with house money, and that's when you surprise. And you look at in the Western Conference, the top probably 5, I would say, are pretty solidified, but
Yep.
There's potential that a team like Winnipeg could potentially fall out of those top 4 in the West. And you look at teams in the Pacific like the Los Angeles Kings, who now have major injury issues on the back end with Drew Doughty out for probably most of, if not the entire season. All of a sudden, there might be room for a team to kind of step up and snag one of those final wild card spots. And if Utah can get some offense going, especially early on in the season, maybe they can do it.
Yeah, and one thing I really like too is, you mentioned all the guys they added on the blue line this season, but they're also like entering their primes right now, or kind of in their primes right now. They didn't just go out against a bunch of old guys who are kind of like hitting the back nine of their these guys are all like in their primes right now, should make a immediate impact. Plus, their contracts are all set up to where they're going to be kind of expiring right when you would probably want to start to get out of them. John Marino is 27. He's signed for 3 more years. Sergachev, he's 26. He is signed through 2031, but like you expect him to be a pillar on your blue line for the length of that deal. Sean Durzee's 25. He's signed through the 2028 season. Like even Ian Cole, who's only signed for 1 year. Like all these guys are kind of in a perfect position, so you can start to infiltrate younger defensemen as they grow and develop to take over some of these guys, or if you want to go out and try to add pieces around. I love what Utah did on the blue line here, and we'll see how well they gel quickly they can gel. Maybe it might be the defense struggles and all your offensive players who've been around kind of, you're winning games 5-4 at the beginning of the season, and once your defense kind of settles in, then you might start to see these 5-2 victories from Utah. It's gonna be a while before I'd still say Arizona, but I like this team. The more I look at this team, the more I'm talking myself into them potentially making a run here. So yeah, they're going to be really fun to see how they kind of come out of the gate, and especially with all the positive energy, I think, around the franchise now, with new ownership and new arena, and not new arena, but just a new home, away from the muck that they've had to deal with the past couple seasons.
It's like the guy that meets Happy Gilmore when he first goes on the tour and is like, got a lot of positive energy. That's good. I like that. This is how we feel about Utah. And you talk about a team that doesn't have a ton of questions in net, going to a team that has nothing but questions in net. We'll take a look at Vancouver's burning questions, and I will give you a hint between the pipes. So we'll discuss as we continue our burning questions here on today's edition of Locked On NHL. We are your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You don't have to have 200 tabs open like I do when I'm tracking my fantasy team, because let's be honest, I want to have the fantasy cast going for every single player on my roster. I'm a psychopath like that. So you don't have to do that, though, because FanDuel organizes everything wonderfully for you. And if you head to FanDuel.com right now and place a $5 bet, you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It doesn't even have to be a winner. You could go and place a $5 bet on the Jacksonville Jaguars to cover for some reason, and you would still end up getting $200 in bonus bets. You could take the second half under between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. Not going to hit that. But again, it doesn't have to be a winner. So win or lose, head to FanDuel.com now, place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. As we continue our burning questions, we move now to the Vancouver Canucks. This one is a little messy, JD, because you look at what has happened to the Vancouver Canucks, and at this point, still waiting on a timetable for Thatcher Demko, although it sounds as though, I don't know, maybe progressing. You've got Artur Silovs, who is at this point expecting to probably take the lion's share, but is it going to be enough for Vancouver? Can you really go into the season leaning on a 23-year-old rookie with no idea when your franchise goalie is going to be coming back? That seems dicey to me as a team with playoff aspirations.
They did go out, of course, and sign Lehkonen for a 1-year deal, I think, to kind of help solidify that. It sounds like, per The Athletic, Harman Dayal, sorry on that, but per The Athletic, Thatcher Demko has made progress over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Still no timetable, but like this might be one of those things where maybe it's American Thanksgiving, where we are, he's kind of getting back into shape. So I think for the Canucks, right, especially with such a question mark, and if Demko can come back and what he looks like when he comes back, and if he can, kind of get back to that being Thatcher Demko, can you just hang in there? Because this roster is loaded. Otherwise, like you look up and down this roster, and it's an excellent roster. Like I think most fans would kill to have this kind of team put together. You have Elias Pettersson, who I know he didn't have the greatest playoff run last year because he dealt with injury. You have Quinn Hughes, the reigning Norris winner. Like you've got Brock Besser in a contract year, like potential 50 goal Brock Besser. You just added Jake DeBrusk. Like there's a lot of talent up and down this roster, and I think they can just hang in there. Like I think this team could maybe they just go the Oilers route of like, we're just going to outscore you until we get our goaltender back. And I think this team is built to do that right now. And if that's how they have to play the first part of the season, is just like, screw it, let's just go score 6 goals a night and see if you can catch up, then that's how they do it. And then once they get Demko, they can maybe kind of be a little bit more of a balanced team. But I think this team is equipped to play whatever style of hockey they need to play.
Yeah, if you gave teams the option of, hey, you're going to have your star goalie miss the first month of the season, as opposed to, hey, your goalie is going to get hurt in the final month of the season and be out for the year, they're taking the first one 1,000 times out of 10. But, this is interesting because I think this presents a real unique opportunity for Vancouver to just kind of expedite the learning process for Artur Silovs, who had, he played really well in the postseason last year.
He got hurt.
Before he got hurt.
Yes.
Because Demko is, and I'm not suggesting that Vancouver is not going to look to re-sign Thatcher Demko, because he signed for this year and he signed for next year as well. But Silovs will be a restricted free agent the same year that Demko is an unrestricted free agent. And so, you may be in with these contracts that you have signed to some of your top guys. You may be in position to have to go one or the other. And so this gives you an opportunity to get a nice little look at Silovs to start the season. But I think ultimately it just comes down to Vancouver outlasting. Like if it's right around a month, I think that's very doable for a team with the depth that Vancouver has. If it gets to be more than that, all of a sudden you're getting towards Christmas, towards the end of 2024. That is a little more dicey for me, because you just, if you are in a position where the goaltending you're getting isn't great, how big of a hole are you going to dig yourself, and how much time are you going to have left to be able to dig out of it by the time the season is done? Vancouver's got a lot of good things going for them. They have tremendous talent offensively. Elias Pettersson, JT Miller, on and on down the list. And so don't overlook the Rick Tocchet effect too, because he has a really good pulse on this team, and he is going to get what he needs from them in the event that they're not at full strength for the first, month and a half of the season. I think ultimately Vancouver will be, I think they'll still be in the mix at the end of the season, unless now the one scenario in which this could be a problem is if you're navigating this major injury and you then tack another one on top of it, to where all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we got 2 big pieces out of the lineup. That's where things start to get a little tricky.
Yeah. Especially at net. Like, I still think Lankinen, though, in a pin, like he's played well the last 2 seasons with the Preds. Last year in 24 games, he had a 908 save percentage with a 282 goals against. Year before that, in 19 games, right? He's never going to be the guy with Soros, but 275 with a 916 save percent. Like I think he can help hold down the fort.
Yeah,
and I think that's why they signed him, but. If you started to see injuries, especially to one of their big guys, whether it's like Hughes or Pedersen or one of those guys, where it's like, then you wonder if like it's just we're back to the same old Canucks where this team just might be cursed. But I think this team is due to have a big run. I think they're going to win the Pacific this year again, and I think they're if Demko can come back and be 90-95% Demko by the time the playoffs are hitting, and he's kind of getting back into being there and everybody else kind of clicking, and Quinn Hughes continues to play at the pace that he is playing, I don't see why this team isn't a threat. I don't know why we're not, if they feel like overlooked, to be honest, especially compared to like the other big names. We talk about Dallas a lot. We talk about Colorado. Nashville's got all their new shiny toys. Vancouver, it's the same dudes. They got DeBrusco. I feel like it's a perfect fit. And if Demko comes back, I don't know why we're not talking about this team more. Like why this team isn't being talked about as a potential cup team, because they have all the talent in the world. And I think like you said, the coach, they have a great coach. It's just, can everything come together for him?
My favorite NFL term that is used by some of the analytical experts to talk about potential playoff teams is possibly frisky. I think that applies here for Vancouver, but they definitely are being slept on as a team that has without those injuries, they probably maneuver their way past the Oilers.
Yeah, this team's good.
Controversial statement? I think not.
My hot take: the Vancouver Canucks are a good hockey team. Social team. There you go. Clip it.
Oh, we are dropping the controversial statements here. No,
hot takes.
They've got a really good team, and they've got a couple of really good hosts as well for our colleagues at Locked On Canucks. They got the whole package over there, so I salute you. Let's talk some awards, because there are going to be some awards handed out this year. I'm hoping that the Minnesota Wild don't get a congratulations, you were eliminated from the first round for the 15th straight time. Again, because I have enough of those. But let's talk about who could potentially put themselves in position to angle for some of the biggest awards in the NHL. We'll do that as we finish today's episode of Locked On NHL after this.
If you want to go grab tickets to an NFL game, you got hockey season right around the corner. NBA, go catch some baseball playoffs. You need to check out Gametime. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff. I want to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have curated deals that make it easier to find the best price on great seats. The super deal, if it has super in it, it has to be good. You can view your seats before you buy. There's nothing worse than getting to an event and realizing that your seats stink. The lowest price guaranteed, event cancellation protection. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time.
One final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. It is awards time. Let's talk about some of the big ones here this year that could have a Western Conference flair to them this season. And so, JD, let's just start with the big one, the Hart Trophy. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk first about our favorite potential Western Conference players for these awards. We're going to take a look at what our friends at FanDuel have to say in terms of odds for particular players to get those awards and which ones are your absolute values. If you are inclined, and I know a lot of people are, like I have a few friends who like to put some futures down before the season starts. Sometimes you may feel like you want to have a Columbus and Arizona Stanley Cup final, and you just feel like lighting $10 on fire. But hey,
that was
I salute you.
Betting on the Sharks to win the Stanley Cup every year during the mid-teens is just here's $20 that just.
I would just hand it to the attendant, and before they grab it, just pull it back and just pull out a lighter and just say, "I'm better off doing this."
Twice, yeah. That way you don't get your heart broken twice. Let's start with of course, the Hart Trophy, and it's McDavid. I know Nathan MacKinnon won it last year. I have a feeling McDavid is going to be on a mission this year, especially we talked about before, right? He only had 30 goals last year, which feels like a normal player scoring like 10 for McDavid. It's like,
yeah,
you're used to him being in the like 50 range. I think we see McDavid kind of go crazy again this year, especially as new contract talks are going to be starting here really soon. Might be a nice reminder to the people up in Edmonton that, I'm pretty good. You're going to want to pay me a lot of money. Not that he's not making a lot of money right now. So I know his odds are like plus 150. It's a very safe pick, but I like to win. And maybe, McDavid, it just feels like safe just to bet McDavid because McDavid's probably going to win. It's basically McDavid. You take McDavid or the field in most cases. So, yeah.
Do you want my homer analysis on
the Kirill Kaprizov? Yeah.
Did
Minnesota cannot handle both Sam Darnold and Kirill Kaprizov both as MVPs. The place would blow up.
Yeah, we would be wiped off the map. Did John Hines unlock the ultimate form of Kirill Kaprizov? Many people are saying this because do you want to know the numbers he put up from the time that he took over as coach? The numbers that Kirill put up, John Hines didn't play.
0 minutes,
though.
0 PIMs,
yeah.
0, yeah.
0.
Yes.
These are the numbers that Kirill put up from the time that John Hines took over to the end of the season. He played in 56 games, 40 goals, 38 assists, 78 total points in the final 56 games of the season. He was 7th in the NHL in scoring in that time frame. And if you want to even dial it up a little further, he was 6th in the NHL in goals, trailing only Zach Hyman, Sam Reinhart, Nathan MacKinnon, and Austin Matthews in that same time frame. So if you're talking about somebody from the Western Conference and somebody that I think is a sneaky pick because it's likely that he's going to be reunited with his BFF, Matt Zuccarello. They have some unreal chemistry together. And somebody who, he may not do this subconsciously, but the time is starting to tick until Kaprizov's negotiating window can begin. And what do we know about what players do in or around contract seasons?
Yep.
So plus 2,000, I'm putting a little something on that. Like that might require a nest egg on those odds, because if he's going to do it, it's going to be this year or next year.
Yeah. Who's your favorite? Because we got a lot of these to go through. Who's your favorite kind of long shotty person here? And that's the most ridiculous ones, but I'll go first. I like Elias Pettersson. I've loved Elias Pettersson since he first came to the league. I think he has one of these MVP seasons in him at some point. He's at plus 7,000 right now. And especially in a year where you might need to start the season by outscoring your opponents, especially with questions in net. They have all the talent in the world there. Can we be looking at a potential like 50 goal, 125 point season out of Pedersen, and he just kind of puts this Canucks and team on his back and wipes away everything that went wrong in the playoffs last year? That's my favorite kind of long shotty one.
Something draws me to Mikko Rantanen at plus 10,000. He is just supremely talented on that Colorado team. A Colorado team that has some question marks in their bottom six this year. What is that group going to look like? Which means there's going to be more attention and more need from that top six to carry the team, to share the load. And I like those are very long odds, but what do we know about Rantanen is he's a goal scorer. He puts up a ton of points. He plays with Nathan McKinnon. These are all appealing, and he had a monster season this past year. Who's to say he doesn't do it again?
I like that one too. Yeah.
How about we hop to the Vezina? Because there are some intriguing defensemen in the Western Conference that will factor in for this. Obviously,
are we doing Vezina or are we doing Norris?
I said Vezina, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah, that's the goalie one. Okay. That's the goalie one. There are some intriguing goalies that could win the Vezina. Maybe a defenseman if they played in net for a whole season.
The Ohtani of our age right here, yes.
I could talk for hours about what that guy's doing for Major League Baseball, but the Twins ruined it for me. Anyway, Vezina. Obviously, you've got two of the best goalies in the entire NHL in the Central Division. You've got Jake Ottinger in the Central Division. You've got Thatcher Demko, who's going to miss the start of the season. Honestly, I think it starts and finishes with Connor Hellebuyck and UC Saros as the two, like, I would call them front runners for the Vezina. At least at this point, Jake Ottinger had kind of a weird up and down year. But he still is a very, very good goalie. And if he stays healthy, he's going to be in the mix too. But I mean, flip a coin. Hellebuyck, Saros, take your pick, really.
Yeah, this is a very Eastern Conference dominated award here where you look at where the goalies. It's funny when we get to the Norris, which is the defenseman, it's the quite opposite. But yeah, I think Hellebuyck, Saros, those feel like Saros too, especially with this team. If Nashville kind of takes that big jump that we expect them to do, and he's kind of the centerpiece behind it. You could definitely talk me into that. Yeah, it does feel kind of like Hellebuck's, at least among the Western Conference. It feels like it's Hellebuck's title to lose as the best goalie, except for in random preseason games where he gives up a bajillion goals to the Wild. But it definitely feels like that was the highlight. It does. Who's your long shots here? There's a name that really sticks out to me. I know he had a very up and down season last year, but played really well in the playoffs last year and was a game away from winning a Stanley Cup. And that's Stuart Skinner, who you could Edmonton's going to get a lot of it's, who gets a lot of shine. Edmonton is one of the big markets. Everyone talks about Edmonton. If Stuart Skinner comes out and he plays, 55 games and is, just posts ridiculous numbers, he's going to be all over the highlights and stuff. Stuart Skinner at plus 4,500. I kind of like that one. And as much as it pains me, Adin Hill plus 2,500 for the Vegas, like that team feel like they're going to be a grinded out type of team. If Adin Hill can stay healthy, we've seen him have flashes of excellence. His big thing is just, can he stay healthy enough and play enough games? That one I kind of like too, but the Stuart Skinner one at plus 4,500 feels really tasty.
I am intrigued by Connor Ingram at plus 4,500 because he had some really good stretches last year for Arizona. Like, get on my back. I'm gonna win this game by myself. Can he do that for a more extended period of time with a better defense in front of him? Might not be a bad proposition. Let's go to the one with the rookies first before we go to the actual award for the defenseman, the Norris Trophy, which is for the defense, not the goalies, the Norris Trophy. Let's go to the Calder Trophy because there's an intriguing rookie crop that will have a lot to say about the Calder Trophy this year.
Yeah, some dude named Macklin Celebrini. He's pretty good from what I heard. Yeah, it's Mitchkov, who is he has the best odds right now, but then it's a lot of Western Conference guys. Macklin Celebrini, that's my pick, of course. That's 100% homer, but I do also believe he's going to be a huge addition to the Sharks. I think he's going to produce. You've already seen him and Tyler Toffoli be able to create beautiful music already. He's going to get first line center minutes already. Like I thought they might kind of ease him in. Nope, it's Macklin Celebrini's job, and they were going to surround him with the most talented players they have on the Sharks right now and try to make his life as easy as possible. And I think too, with him, this might be a little bit of the Brock Faber argument last year where maybe his numbers aren't quite as good as Mitchkov, because I think Mitchkov will probably score more goals. But I think what Celebrini does in all three zones is more, might be able to kind of sway the voters there. And if the numbers are close enough, he might get the nod there with that. You do have Logan Stankoven, who was outstanding for Dallas last year. Cutter Gauthier, who's going to get a bajillion shot. He had against the Sharks in a preseason game, he had 12 shots on goal last week. He had like 18 shot attempts and 12 shots on goal.
Wow.
Yeah, you also have Will Smith. You wonder maybe the Celebrini Smith, they might kind of eat into each other a little bit, but I think most people recognize how young this team is. Dustin Wolf, your boy Jesper Wallstedt, Askarov, like this is very Western Conference dominated with the odds here. But I'm gonna take Celebrini. I think the NH. And if the conspiracy theory, like the NHL wants to push their golden child, Vancouver boy, yeah.
I am going to hit you with a scorcher here because it fits the mascot of the team that he is playing for. I'm going Dustin Wolf. I like that plus. I like that plus 2,400. And let's be honest, that net is fully up for grabs. Like
the problem is,
gone.
Have you seen the team in front
it's
of
a bad team,
it's
but
a bad team.
Trial by fire with the Flames.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? It's like the guy sitting in the living room and he's like, this is fine. I'm perfectly fine with everything that's going on around me. I don't know. Something about a young goalie kind of cutting his teeth through absolute chaos in front of him and rising above it like a phoenix. Rising from the ashes. Am I using enough Flames puns here? Like, is that too many?
That's too many.
I just like plus...
you do know though, he does have the hunger, like the wolf. He's really nice.
All right, let's go on to the Norris Trophy
for the goalies.
Yeah,
I have to keep that in now because yes.
I don't care. I don't let things of that nature bother me. So
I don't let facts bother me.
I'll clip it myself.
Yeah.
I'll clip it myself and I'll use it on my own social channel. The Norris Trophy features several intriguing Western Conference options, including Evan Bouchard at plus 750.
That's kind of my favorite one. Hot take. Cale Makar is amazing. He's the best defenseman of our generation, but you wonder the fatigue factor of voting for him. And, he could rack up one every year, basically, as long as he's healthy. Quinn Hughes won it last year. Roman Yossi's amazing, but you can literally see the train in motion on the Evan Bouchard Norris Trophy, especially after last season, the playoffs last year, where he kind of took over and was our number one in defenseman. Like, yeah, Bouchard, that's my pick at plus 750 right there. If I had to go long shot, though, Brock Faber at plus 4,000, feeding Kirill Kaprizov in his MVP season, just feeding him pucks constantly. Brock Faber, who can actually also play defense as well.
Doesn't hurt.
Like, he's hurt, but I don't care. Like, he'll be fine as long as if he plays like 75 games, he'll be fine.
He's not gonna miss a single game. He never does.
He does, yeah. And like, I just want to see him with his little goofy glasses at the award ceremony with that big trophy. No, that one's kind of my favorite. Long shot one at plus 4,000 is your boy Brock Faber. So,
well, I would be hard pressed to not say Brock Faber, but my honest opinion there is that Makar and Yossi, and probably even Heiskanen too, are clouding the top of the pool here.
Yeah.
I don't think Faber factors in now, but I do think at some point during his career, he will win one.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's that good of a defenseman that he will win one. My best long shot here, my favorite long shot, is Seth Jones at plus 12,000.
I hate that so much. It's so gross. He's not even the best defenseman on his team.
I know. I saw that number and I'm like, whoa. The Vegas odds do not approve of Seth Jones' defense.
Just light your money on fire on that.
Yeah, that's really bad. So we will see who ends up taking home the hardware at the end of the season, but nice little primer to kind of get you going. And of course, FanDuel has odds on literally everything for the NHL season. Props, you can go over under on goals, points, team points, awards, conference champions, divisions, playoff teams. You can do all of that at FanDuel. So make sure to check that out and make sure to stay tuned as we finish off our burning questions for you next week and get you set for the start of the season. That will do it for today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. Make sure to hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe before you head out for the day. And make sure to subscribe on your favorite audio platforms as well so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We have new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.